August is a time when politicians usually give themselves some time off. But as we well know, politics in this country and in our state certainly seldom slows down. And this gives us an opportunity to kind of explore some key issues we know await our leaders in the days and weeks and months ahead. And to help us do just that, I want to welcome in from the Ohio Capital Journal. You can read her work, ohiocapitaljournal.com. This is Susan Tebben. Her background in journalism has spanned both print and broadcast. Susan, good to have you along. Thanks for being with us. Enjoyed the work of you all down at the Ohio Capital Journal. You wrote last week about how some Ohio GOP leaders, you wrote about GOP leadership in Roe v. Wade. And I know my viewers are going to say, wait, Roe v. Wade, that's abortion. That's the U.S. Supreme Court. That's that story. And it is, as the High Court, we believe, will take up this case out of Mississippi. Right. But as you write, Ohio's Attorney General and state lawmakers, the wheels are turning on this one even now. How so?
Definitely. So the way it works is there's been a lot of challenges to Roe v. Wade lately, and they haven't been, precisely, we are suing Roe v. Wade, that kind of direct contact. It's these Mississippi cases, it's a Louisiana case, it's a case out of Texas. They're looking at these state level cases and seeing if it's worth the U.S. Supreme Court taking up this issue and saying, do we need to look at this again? Has it become an outdated court case? Do we need to see what the science looks like for abortion rights and that kind of thing? So when it comes to state level, as we have seen, and as I've reported, there have been a number of legislative bills that have come that have tried to restrict abortion, have tried to reduce, say, the limits between where a doctor that works at an abortion clinic can be have admitting privileges at a hospital, for example. And then telemedicine, as we saw in the pandemic, telemedicine became a big issue, something that seemed like it was a benefit. However, when you're looking at abortion, medication abortion sometimes can be distributed through telemedicine. So we had a bill that looked at, we don't think that should be allowed in the state of Ohio, legislators say. So that's how they're looking at this. Legislators put out a brief on the Mississippi case. It's called a Friends of the Court brief, which means they just have an interest in this. They see a need to speak out their support for overturning Roe v. Wade. So there are a significant number of legislators from Ohio that spoke on that or wrote in the brief and said, this impacts our way of passing laws that have to do with abortion. In Ohio's case, a lot of those laws or bills have to do with reducing or restricting abortion, despite the fact that public opinion in the state is kind of split on it.
Attorney General Dave Yost has signed on with a bunch of other state attorneys general. Yes. And isn't it true, Susan, in help me if this, is it law or is it still a proposal? There has been legislation talked about down at the State House that says as soon as Roe v. Wade is overturned, should it be overturned, boom, this kicks in Ohio. Is that still a proposal? Do we know? Is that law by now? And frankly, on a kind of related, very much related, my experts up here, a lot of my legal people, Susan, are telling me that they don't see Roe v. Wade necessarily just being tossed aside and thrown out, but that the Supreme Court may whittle away and may reduce. And so I don't know if that would make any state law that says, okay, as soon as Roe v. Wade is overturned, it seems like it would be moot if it's not totally overturned. What do you think?
Right. Yes, there is a proposal out. It hasn't been passed, but it's called a trigger law, which would do what you're saying. It would say that abortion can be restricted as soon as Roe v. Wade is overturned. You are also correct in saying, I have some experts as well that are saying Roe v. Wade, it doesn't look like it will be completely overturned, but even if it's not overturned, significantly modified is the way that a lot of legal experts are looking at it. So it's going to be a while before we really know what that means. And obviously, what I'm told is it's going to be next year before the U.S. Supreme Court even finishes deciding on this Mississippi case, which would be the main, tipping of the scales for this issue.
But Ohio lawmakers are lining up, folks. They're getting ready, and that's why we have Susan on. Now, you went into something, the Pew Research Center, highly respected, And the fact that Ohioans very much are divided, right, on the issue
Mhm.
of abortion. It's a tough issue. It's an emotional issue for many. It's a religious issue. It's life and death. It's when does life begin? I mean, some heavy, heavy, important stuff. 49% of Ohioans approve of legal abortions. In most cases, you're right, from the Pew Research Center. 48% opposed. I mean, boom, boom, boom.
Right.
Yet pro-life legislation, Susan Tebben, will have little trouble sailing through the state legislature, which some say is another example of why we need to fix gerrymandering. The makeup of the state legislature does not reflect the makeup of the populace of the state.
Right. Right. Yes, that's absolutely what people are, and abortion advocates on their side, as soon as the budget hit, which the budget had some measures that said, talking about the doctor admitting privileges to those that work with abortion clinics, that was included in the budget.
Right.
So they were already talking when the budget hit, saying gerrymandering is part of the issue that we have because, and we've seen this with redistricting. People that are working on redistricting all over the state are saying the way that this works is it makes the primary elections more important than the general election. So we're seeing, all of these fights. We saw this with the August 3rd special election. We had a bunch of people on the Republican side, bunch of candidates on the Republican side. And that's where the true campaigning happened. How radical are we? How much do we believe in pro-life, in, God before country, that kind of thing? Where are we on that? And that's where the fights. So gerrymandering, basically what the redistricting experts are saying is we need to redistrict because we've created a system where their districts are put out in such a way that it works for the most, conservative, far right, far left, rather than being representative of what the state or their districts are.
Well, when you have politics, what's the thing they're saying? And it makes some sense. Politicians choosing their voters as opposed to the voters choosing their politicians. I want to go to school vouchers now. State legislature loves them, it seems. I mean, certainly very generously funded them in the most recent state budget. And you're right, it's true. Yeah, the Supreme Court of the state has ruled that the state legislature, lawmakers can use Ohio taxpayers, this is public money, to pay for private schools, even religious schools. Yet a lawsuit is out there brewing. And you write that Supreme Court ruling doesn't necessarily settle this. How so?
Well, it's the whole idea that came through the state Supreme Court decision, which was, do we have a thorough and efficient method of public school education? So does whatever education that we have, however the schools are set up, are we getting the kids the same education, or at least a comparable education for everyone? And that's where we're still looking at, lawsuits, and it's a group, the Ohio Coalition for Equity and Adequacy for School Funding, is the group that started the DeRolf decisions 30 years ago, excuse me. So they're used to, being diligent about public school education and how it's being funded. So this model has to be, as they say, this model has to be equitable. And that's been their whole point the entire time for the last 30 years. So
don't sell them short. Susan Tebben points out, this is Bill Phillis. Bill Phillis has been around for decades. They had the lawsuit in which courts ruled, and it happened a few times, that the way we fund public education in Ohio is unconstitutional. Isn't that great? We send our kids to school, learn about the Constitution while we fund you unconstitutionally. Right. And this is the same group now that is challenging in something for us to follow. Real quick.
Phillis says for his part, he would not be a part of this if he didn't think he was going to win, which I guess anyone would say that's filing a lawsuit, but he seems pretty confident.
He's a very credible guy. I wanted to get into so much and our time is short. Do you get to cover the folks, Susan Tebben? Pardon me, but the folks who come to Columbus, they came to Columbus, they actually got a hearing, and then they testified the vaccine makes people magnetic and the keys and spoons stick to them. I mean, I know you wrote about the one legislator who wanted the governor charged with terrorism, and he did so with a straight face. So I'm going to try to get mine straightened up here a little bit. As reporters, do you guys sometimes have to just pinch each other or yourselves to say, this isn't Saturday Night Live. This is real stuff, and we're covering it because it's wild down there?
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. You get readers and even friends and family. They're like, "Did that really happen? Where did that come from?" And that's what happens. And we always say, you sit for hours in legislative hearings and things, and oftentimes there's not a lot going on. And then that one time, I
Yeah.
also had the State Board of Education, where one board of ed asked the superintendent if he was paid by Bill Gates, but that came 4 hours in. You had to wait for that to come. So yeah, there's a lot of people out there with a lot of strong opinions, and we feel it's important to get every voice out there, so we're going to report on those things no matter how, as long as we can fact check them. And that gives us
And they do. You got to
yeah.
check these folks out. OhioCapitalJournal.com, folks. They are non-commercial. That is, you don't find a bunch of advertisements there. They're not beholden to anybody. I think they run on grants and really contributions from folks like you, but they're all over state government. She is Susan Tebben. It's nice to meet you. I enjoy your work. Keep it up. My best to the gang down there at the Capital Journal.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Take care, Susan. And I'll be right back with more on Leading Edge.